Hi, and good morning, and welcome to another week of In the News with Sapphire. Welcome to the 11th of October already, and where I bring you weekly in the news updates of different things in the property space. If you have any comments, feel free to share, and I will answer. And join in and just tell me good morning. I'd love to hear from you and love to hear your questions or anything that you have on feedback while we're doing this news stream. So feel free to join in. Also in the news this week, we're going to be meeting at the Excel Centre on Saturday from 11 a.m. So if you want to meet me live and introduce yourself and get any property tips, we're meeting at the Property Investor Show on Saturday. You're welcome to come along. It is a free event, so get your tickets and come and meet me as well. I'll be down there walking around with my team and also members from our academy, so you can ask any questions that you like. So what is happening in the news this week? Well, the stamp duty, should it change to promote much more downsizing? An interesting demand has been made of the Chancellor to consider reforming the stamp duty with thresholds revised to reflect the local markets. The call has come from estate agents' trade body, Property Mark, which has lobbied the Chancellor ahead of the budget and spending review scheduled for later this month. Property Mark says the current system has been in place since 2014 and it is ripe for change. The organisations tell Sadiq a range of a range of opportunities for innovation could be explored, such as how the tax could be levied to minimize the restrictions of transactions and facilitate a more dynamic movement in and across the market, incentivizing downsizing, perhaps via a last time buyer's relief, helping more people to realize that their aspirations for owning their own home, maximizing use of existing housing supply, and contributing to the leveling up and net zero agendas by bringing more empty homes back into their use and supporting energy efficient improvements. The submission by Property Mark dwells for some time on downsizing, present inefficiency, and that creates a barrier to downsizing, reduces demand for housing that has been specifically designed for older people. In the UK, just 2% of the country's housing stock has been designed with pensioners in mind. Further, seen lack of movement and elevating prices due to lack of options for those that would otherwise be included into the move. Property Mark says stamp duty more precisely, a reduction or radical change, it can play a vital part in a wider economy. What do you think about that? Do you think that it would help if there was a reduction or a reform of the stamp duty? It should also be noted that even though 1% reduction in the SDLT has been shown to increase housing market activity by 20%, the implications of this particular in attempts to correct the market inefficiencies, support home ownership, and encourage investment in private rented sectors should be explored as a priority, says the submission. So what do you think about that? Do you think there needs to be a reform? Does our Chancellor need to look at this in the next budget and come up with a better way of looking at how they deal with stamp duty and downsizing? Let me know in the comments. In avenues, PropTech can reassure agents in post-SDLT holiday market claim. The right technology can reassure agencies that transactions will complete on time, vital to retain business following the end of the stamp duty holiday. That's the view of PropTech firm Gazelle, which says that fall-throughs determine not just existing businesses, but future activity too. It says that during 2020, no fewer than 306,198 property sales fell through before completion. This figure is 12% more than in 2019. Gazelle co-founder Brian um, Mansell, says transactions fell through being reduced can be reduced using a reservation agreement that allows the home buyers and seller to commit to the property through a transparent process. Digitalizing of the property industry removes stress for everyone involved. It does not remove all the hard work, but it does make it more reliable and trustworthy process. PropTech allows processes could be automated to yield better results without removing human interaction. It works as an additional number of teams that drives the company forward and increase confidence, he suggests. Now, I went through a property transaction with solicitors and things like that, and it was really hard to get things done in a timely fashion. They are overworked because of that last strand of the stamp duty. But what do you think? Do you think technology can really drive this forward? Do you think it would really help us to have a different way of thinking, different way of processing applications to avoid this? And do you think also that doing an agreement between the seller and buyer would really help the process as well? I really think it does, and it could. So, let's consider that. In avenues, new calls to stop rentals, home switching to Airbnb. Now, we all know that Airbnb's been in the news continuously, rapidly, but I don't know why they're getting sort of levied and beat up so much over this course, because it is individual people that are buying the properties and turning it into what they want. But let's read what this report says. A new call has come for government action to stop the hemorrhaging of properties shifting from long-term rentals to Airbnb shortlets. And again, it's coming from the southwest of England. A meeting that is taking place in Devon County Council will consider to call an all-party housing reform to discuss the crisis in which 70% of privately owned properties that were rented out for 2 years ago are now no longer available for tenants. And an official figure revealed house prices in the same part of the country has risen by as much as 20% in the last year. Some of this is down to the growth of second homes. 8% of the properties in the South Hams are now second homes, with 4% North Devon and East Devon, and some of the Airbnb growth. The councillor, Rob, second home sales are soaring. Private landlords are switching to holiday letting in huge numbers. Specifically, fewer homes are available to buy or rent, and both renters and buyers are being priced out of the country on an unprecedented way. The post-pandemic of southwest property booms have essentially compounded decades of systematic underinvesting in social and affordable housing that has prevented local housing councils, housing associations, and charities from investing in much more needed homes for local people and families. Home ownership is now only a distant dream for so many people who have lived here for generations, they go on to say. The Liberal Democrats have also, on the council, said end the tax dodgers loophole for second homeowners, switching from council tax to business rates and then claiming small business exemptions. What do you think about this? Good morning, Charmaine. Lovely to have you here. It's a long time that I haven't been on Facebook, so it's really good to be back on Facebook and streaming live to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So join in. So good morning to you. So what do you think about this? Do you think that the switching on to Airbnb is right? Do you think with that, people that are doing Airbnb or using Airbnb's platform for shortlets is a good thing to do? Please share your opinion. In avenues, who thought it? Shelter bosses praises some private landlords. Well, that's the first. Chief executive of Shelter heaped praises on at least some private landlords. Paulinetta, that she knew firsthand experience amongst her family and some landlords, bent over backwards to help tenants during the pandemic. In recent years, Netta has used shelters as a campaigning vehicle to stridently criticize the private landlord and letting agent sector. She accepts that there were some very good landlords and very bad tenants. However, goes on to say that in principle, she believes that much more of the power balance within the sector was with the landlords than tenants. And she told Hughes that she hoped this would be rectified in an imminent government white paper on private rental reforms. She claims that there was a substantial number of people in their 30s in HMOs or people living in poor conditions and increasingly older renters who have little or no prospects of becoming home owners. Traditionally, renters were those on the cusp of home ownership, but now too many of the on the cusp of homelessness, and we need to protect them. Nettie told an attending event that she attended. So, what do you think about this? You think, I mean, she goes on to praise from shelter, but also making it highlighting about the inadequate space in HMOs and the lack of support that some landlords are giving. I mean, I like to praise all landlords that are good landlords out there as well. And those that are shoddy landlords shouldn't be praised at all. If you're giving a good service to your tenants, and I talk to many um, landlords out there that are giving good services to their tenants and doing a phenomenal job with HMOs, those definitely should be praised. But those rogues should not be praised. And she's right. Everyone used to go out there and find a property to rent so that they could go on to buy. That's no longer viable for some people. And it's a shame that it's no longer viable because it is pricing them out of the market. However, what should be done about it? Please share your opinions. I'd love to hear them. In avenues, government news, let me just take a of my coffee. Universal credit cuts today. Landlords last grasp criticism. Today, the government will go ahead as planned to cut universal credit of £20 per week. The level of welfare support has been increased in light of the impact of the pandemic on household incomes. With rent arrears at historically high levels, the National Residential Landlord Association has made a last gasp statement saying this cut will significantly worsen the level of rent debt occurred by tenants across the private rented sector. According to official government figures, almost 1.5 million renters across England and Wales could stand to lose £1,000 a year as a direct result of today's announcement. And according to 2019-2020 English Housing Survey, 14.4% of privately rented households in receipt of benefit were behind rental payments. Over the course of the pandemic, the overall proportion of privately rented households in arrears tripled. Many more households will be forced into a financial situation due to the impact of the end of the furlough scheme and today's cut, the association claimed. During the pandemic, we were found that many renters have built high levels of arrears, which they will struggle to pay off in the future. With this in mind, today's cut of the universal credit is a short-sighted move and will only serve to worsen this ongoing rent debt crisis. They go on to say most landlords have offered flexibility where tenants have faced the financial impact of the pandemic, but they cannot absorb these losses indefinitely. Particular steps to address this problem can and should be taken to ensure those tenants in receipt of benefits can cover their rent. What do you think about this? Do you think that, they should have cut that extra £20? Or is it, well, before the pandemic hit, everybody, did it help everyone through the pandemic, or should everyone have it cut now? What's your opinion on this? I think there should be a flexibility to allow that to go on for those who are really on the impoverished line. But however, they need to address this in a different way to suit all and to help all. Besides addressing the consequences of this cut to the universal credit, it is their belief that adopting this new approach will go a long way towards the creation of fairer, more inclusive private rented sector, which works in interest in both the landlord and the tenants. Please share with me what you think about this. In avenues, Airbnb's glut slashes rental stock and leads to housing crisis claim. A lack of long-term rental accommodations, thanks to the growth of Airbnb and other short lets, has led to a prominent council declaring a house crisis. And we just talked about this briefly in regards to um, Devon, but they're going to be one lobbying the government to allow council tax changes on the housing plots with planning permission if they have not built after a specific period of time to encourage developers to build. Two, lobby the government to review all holiday accommodations to ensure it is properly regulated, complying with local planning policies and taxing. This could include an extensive extension of the 90-day short let legislation, a proper planning class for short lets and proper licensing for them, says the authority. Three, they're going to review all holiday letting to ensure that the owners are paying the correct amount and of for the removal of waste and recycle. Four, the review of the amount of affordability housing proposed to see if it can be increased. Further promotion five, further promotion of letting agents operating by the council to find properties available for local families in need. Six, to work with the housing providing in areas to encourage tenants to downsize where possible to make larger properties available for larger households. This whole lobby, it goes from 1 to 12. And if you want a copy of it, please feel free to share in the comments and I will share that with you. In avenues, warning to Boris, don't hurt rentals in the push for home ownership. A prominent industry supplier is warning the government not to damage the private rental sector in its pushing to promote ever more home ownership. The censor comes from Matthew Carter, head of marketing for Homelets and Let Alliance, in his comments on the latest rental sector figures. He says, housing follows the same fundamental laws of the economy as other goods that consumers need. Ultimately, demand coupled with the low stock levels for certain types of property are driving up rental values. The concern is that we're at a point where there is some areas with exceptionally high demand. Landlords and the letting markets have faced a continual raft of changes and legislation. The government needs to carefully consider how any future policies might impact the 4.5 million households in the private rented sector. The government push on home ownership shouldn't be done to the detriment of an industry that plays a critical role in the UK housing. The latest Homelet Index prompting the comments showed average rent in the UK has hit another record of high of 1,061, up by 7.5% on the same time last year and up by 0.8% in just 1 month. London continues to march towards normality with another price rise. What do you think about that? Do you think that, Boris shouldn't be pushing for home ownership? Or do you think there should be sort of a balance between that? Please feel free to share in the comments. And if you're on the replay, don't forget #replay. And I will definitely come back and read all your comments and answer any questions you may have. In avenues, city rental demands climbs as the return of workforce goes on. A letting agents research has revealed that the rental demand has continued to climb across most of UK cities during the third quarter of 2021. as a slow return to the workforce spurs improved demand. The Burroughs and Forrester Rental Demand Index monitors listings in a city. It takes an average demand score for each major city based on where the highest number of properties that are already let as a percentage for all rental listings. The analysis of 23 cities have found that the average 4.42.9% during the third quarter at 9.9% increase on the previous quarter and 6.8% higher than the last year. Cardiff and Glasgow have enjoyed the largest quarterly uplift with rental demand climbing at 22.1% on both cities. Bristol, Edinburgh have seen tenant demand lifted more than 20%, with Cambridge just behind. Other cities to make the top 10 where a quarterly tenant demand uplift are considered included Manchester, Newcastle, Southampton, Plymouth, and Birmingham, all between 10 and 15%. Cardiff, Cambridge, Edinburgh, Manchester, Bristol, Glasgow, and Birmingham also rank within that top 10, where the annual change in tenant demand is concerned. They are joined by Newcastle, Bournemouth, and Sheffield to complete the top 10 largest increases in annual rental demand. The managing director of Burroughs and Forrester, James Forrester, comments, there has been numerous indications of late that the UK rental market is starting to once again find its feet after one of the most difficult periods in recent times. The demand for city rental homes in particular was heavily impacted during the pandemic, and as a result, many landlords were forced to stomach a significant decrease in rental income in order to secure a tenant. However, this is starting to change, and we're seeing a notable uplift in demand for rental properties across many of the nation's major cities. We expect to see a further boost over the coming months as many tenants look to secure a property ahead of the new year and have a fresh start. What do you think about that? Do you honestly think that the demand is changing? Do you think we need to really look at the supply and demand? I was always taught that if you ever got the stock and there's the demand, then you need to do something about that because you won't ever have the balance there and you'll have one more over the other. But share your comments. I'd love to hear them this morning. In avenues, possession process, new guidance issues for landlords. The government has issued new guidelines for landlords and tenants concerning the possession process as applied to those on an AST, assured short hold tenancy, or an assured tenancy. It applies to England and Wales. This guide will help you to understand that the rights and responsibilities you have as a landlord when you need to use the courts to take possession of your property. This includes a new arrangement which will be introduced in association with the lifting of the suspension of the possession cases in the county court on 21st of September 2020, says a statement from the newly renamed Department for Levelling Up Housing and the Communities. The guide does not cover leaseholds, holiday lets, or landlords with lodgers. So what do you think about that? Do you think the new guidelines, would you like to understand what the new guidelines are? Do you know what the new guidelines are and would you adhere to it? In avenues, tips for landlords to maximize holiday lets income in 2022. See, we're always forward thinking. So what can you do if you've got a holiday property and you want to maximize your return on it? Landlords in or anticipating entering into the holiday market are being offered a series of tips by one of the country's vacation letting companies. Emily Turner, Sales of Marketing Director at Perfect Stays, said there are 4 key tips for maximizing income. Tip 1, Intelligent pricing. She says having a detailed understanding of your customers' booking habits is vital if you want to maximize your rental rates. Your pricing needs to be tailored for each week throughout the year to suit the visitor demand in the local area. Prices also need to remain competitive to the local market while adjusting to suit the seasonal trends. Turner says by suggesting looking at visitor data for your region, sorry, and when numbers peak, depending on your location, this may be correlated with the National Bank's holiday, school holidays, or popular events. Once you've built up a picture of the visitor behavior and the local market, you'll be in a position to create a price structure to maximize your rental rates. Tip two, emphasizing unique features. Investing in unique features that will make your property stand out will help to maximize revenue. Features such as hot tubs, wood burners, games rooms help your property book well in the colder off season months and can help raise your rental rates. Winters can traditionally be quieter for the time of holiday homes, but by creating a cozy feel, you can increase the appeal for your property during this period, attract more visitors, and boost your annual revenue. She continues, the key is making your home a comfy, enticing retreat for the whole family. And this goes on to leading like to Christmas. People generally want to stay at home, but if your house is set up that you can have multiple families renting out your home for Christmas, then it will make it very attractive. Having a chef coming to do Christmas dinner, having different theme parties for your guests. These are the things that could attract your guests in seasons where it's very cold, like from October to December. Think about what you could do to boost someone wanting to look at that advert and think, I want to get in there. Tip three is location. This is an important factor for guests when considering which holiday home to book and what they want to get out of their stay. Accommodation only is one part of the experience, so share details on what your guests can enjoy doing in that local area. For instance, if you're I'm in Kent, so we're near to Hastings, we're near to Brighton, there's loads of museums, all these kind of things, different trail parks that you can really give and put in your guest book for them to do. If there's any boat trips they can go in over the winters or even the summer months, make sure that you entice them from everything that is around them that they can visit. And even if something is far that you want to introduce, you can also do where the transport, how do you get to that transport? What does it take for you to get there? Is it quick by train to London? You could say like 45 minutes to London on a high speed or things like that. That they know they can even go into London or if they're out in the country, and how quickly they can get there. And these are the facilities when they get to London that they can utilize and go to all the different museums, art galleries, which is helping not only the town that your property is in, it's also helping other towns as well with having visitors and attractions in those locations. Tip four, making a property pet friendly. This has been a big one this year about pets in properties. Making your holiday home dog friendly is a sure way to boost bookings from the pandemic puppy boom. According to the latest Google data, searches for a dog friendly holiday home has seen a 179% increase in the UK since the start of the pandemic, catering to the demand by ensuring that your property is pet safe. If possible, make sure that your garden is fully enclosed and designated to a suitable place for dogs to sleep unsupervised overnight, such as a utility room. With a high percentage of UK holidaymakers wanting to get away with their dogs, accepting pets will expand your property appeal to the wider market and enable you to increase booking levels all year round. Although many owners worry about the potential damage dogs may cause to a property, issue and issues extremely rare, and charging a small fee for each dog will cover any additional cleaning required. What do you think about that? Do you think that it's a wise idea to encourage pets into your property? I think if you charge a small fee, a levy fee, if any damage is occurred, then why not have they can take their animals on holiday with them? That's down to them, and it's at least they see their pets as their family. So why doesn't all the family go? So opening up your guest house or your property to pets will really enhance the sale of your property to rent out. In avenues, what's fueling the rapid growth of the suburban build to rent market? Well, one of the key problems facing the UK housing market can be boiled down to lots of demand and not enough supply. This blockage, despite the government's best efforts to shift it, continues as we are today. Instead of being cleared up, it affects our spreading to the rental market as home ownership levels fall, creating an increase in renters and a steady rise in property prices. If things didn't seem bad enough for the sector, COVID-19 caused a new problem for the housing market. The pandemic affected effect on our work and home lives has caused a notable deluge of residents looking to move from cities to the suburbs, more space being their primary motivator. Another big pull is the fact that the extra rooms to work in and the option of a garden is well within the rental budget for many when looking beyond the limits of the big city. Viable options to help with demand. Build to rent is a new option being seen as a practical way to satisfy the market newfound desire to live in the suburbs. Build to rent is a distinct class within the private rented sector and consists of exactly what the name applies, building new homes specifically for renters, not buyers. This forces development means that homes are being built to head off some of the biggest issues renters face and is quickly emerging as a solution to the housing crisis and suburban based tenants demand. So why is build to rent becoming so popular? The increase in submitted planning permission is due to how attractive this class of property is for developers. Firstly, as a business, they benefit from being able to create a cost-effective homes on a large scale. Secondly, the dynamic community based living is encouraged has made many local planning authorities more amenable to granting development permission. On the other side of the fence, there is a slew of benefits for renters as well. Most importantly is the cost. Build to rent developers are constructing high quality housing en masse, and this allows them to work out economic of scales with the suppliers and keep the rents affordable. Tenants are then able to afford properties that are greener, more high tech, and substantially it has a different specification. So, what's the future of the build to rent? With developers and tenants and local authorities all standing to gain from the build to rent, it's easy to see why it will expand exponentially over the next few years. But where will it go from there? They said in this article their prediction is to take it even further and higher to increase regulations, pushing private landlords out of the market. Also, thinking of the community aspect will get further boost from on-site liaisons who will do everything to ensure a smooth running of local properties and invaluable, convenient and busy households. So what do you think about that, the build to rent? Do you think it's a good idea? I think it's really a different thing. It's come traditionally from the States, but it's really taken off over here as well. In avenues, more buy-to-lets can be sold despite rental market strength data. More buy-to-let properties are being put on the sell market despite the strength of the letting sector, said Zoopla. In the latest snapshot of the sales market, the portal says that the proportion of homes listed for sale that were previously available for rent has risen to 8% across the UK. This is up from a UK-wide figure of 3% 2 years ago. The current proportion reached 13% in London. Part of the problem, inevitably, is that landlords have been tempted by the soaring capital appreciation of their portfolios. Super says average UK house prices up by 17,508 since the start of the pandemic and now has hit a typical 235,000 as well. This is the highest average UK house prices on record and follows a consistent 6-month average increase of £44 per day. This is accelerated growth is up from £30 per day in the last 6 months. So what do you think about this demand that is happening with this buy to let and people trying to cash in on it? Do you think it's a good thing? With more insights, research shows best university locations for buy to let investment. New research reveals that student property portfolios based in smaller university towns or cities typically generate the best returns. The findings from Paragon Bank revealed that the 10 best locations for student property investment, highlighting the places where investors generate the highest rental yield. Swansea's tops the list with an average yield of 9.56% for student properties, with an average property price of 231,534. Towns and cities with just one university delivered some of the best yields, with 7 of the top 10 are having one main higher education institute. Student population in these locations were also typically smaller than 25,000, suggesting that the best returns are not always found in major cities. Oh, that's good news. The next highest yield location is Hull, home to 14,255 students, where the returns are generating 8.68%. Then you've got of the top 10 locations, only Liverpool, Coventry, Leeds had more than one university. Liverpool has the highest yielding major city with 2 or more universities, had an average property price of 225,178, with an expectation rental return of 18,569 per year. That's an 8.25% yield. So what do you think about this? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think that understanding going into smaller towns is going to give you a better return on your investment? Student properties can either be as similar to a normal buy-to-let, where the whole property is rented between friends to cohabitate, or student HMO, where students rent each room individually under their own tenancy. A property is deemed a HMO if at least 3 tenants live there, forming one household, sharing bathroom or kitchen facilities with one another. Investors can currently acquire a 4-bed HMO for students and professionals, fully refurbished and furnished, and tenants are coming year for the coming year for less than 175,000 in Liverpool. Investing in a student HMO accommodation offers a long-term investment options, as the property is highly likely to be constant demand throughout the calendar year. So if those of you going into the HMO sector, this is really good for you, because it really does give you a high yield with student lets when there's limited or just one university in that town, you can see that the rental yields are going through the roof now. In avenues, flipping properties. Tip for landlords wanting to flip properties. So here's some tips. A specialist investment lender has set out tips for how landlords can succeed at flipping. Now, flipping is not for everyone, so listen to the tips I'm about to read. So, purchasing homes and selling relatively quickly, the concept has fallen out of favor until recently. But the rapidly rising house prices of the past 15 months suggest it's becoming very popular again. Scott Hendry, auction finance director at Specialist Lender Together, has offered tips in the world of the property flipping this year and beyond. Location, location, location. That is always my thing as well. Choosing a location that is familiar could be beneficial, as you may um, possess more knowledge or growth potential of the area. If it is an up and coming place, it will all play on the return of your investment. Two, stick to your budget. Overspending can be a slippery slope, as we all know. So sticking to the agreed budget is crucial. There's also been unexpected issues down the line which you may need to urgently fix, which could make your investment simply unaffordable. Recently, there has also been some concern over the shortage of construction material as prices of concrete, aluminium, steel, and timber continues to rise. It is important that you have a safety net in these cases. These delays may lead to surcharges and need for repairs down the line. Tip three, research. There are lots of resources that can help you along the way. For example, the legal pack contains documents relating to the property and prepared by the seller's conveyancer. Each copy is unique, so despite your experience, reading will facilitate your journey. Small prints are very important, if not more so, as it often hides bits with surprises, such as covenants and restrictions and rights of access. So always read your legal documents. Tip four, know your strengths and your weaknesses. When it comes to the process of buying and renovating a house, knowing your strengths and weaknesses can ensure that everything is completed at an optimum speed without the hefty price tag. A downfall in is often not overspending, but being over optimistic whether you can do the work yourself and where your skill sets lie. This is often leads to slowing down your project and not having your project moved in the right direction. Know where your skill sets lie, and you can ask your friends and family because they may be more skilled than you actually know, and help you to do the smaller projects so you don't have to. Tip five, flipping the unusual. Hendry says, where some all sorts of properties appear in a catalogue over the time and have an open mind about the circumstances when we're happy to lend. Whether it's an unusual property, it is in a state of disrepair and you've got a very tight deadline, here's where securing a bridging loan against the property for up to 12 months might be useful. This would allow you to complete the work that you need to do and get it over that threshold. And a bridging finance allows you to also buy properties that may not have kitchens in it or bathrooms in it, where a traditional lender will want those things in before they could lend to you. So always look into bridging if you're going to auction, but also make sure that you can get a bridging finance before going and bidding on a property at auction. So that's been my in the news today on the 11th of October. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got some knowledge from me today about the property industry. If you'd like to leave any comments or share your thoughts or you want to have a conversation with me, you can book a free consultation with myself. Visit our website, www.savvywomen.co.uk, where I'll be happy to discuss any property concerns you have, or even in the business space. I'm very good at that as well. Love always sharing with the news with you. Please join us next week at 8 a.m., where I will give you more different news feeds that is current in the news. It was lovely being around you today. And again, please feel free to share your comments, but also make sure that you leave your name so that I know who you are and I can come back and make that comment. Thanks for listening.